Hello and welcome, fellow Wasteland survivors. I'm Dean. Thanks for stopping in, hanging out with me for part 3 of Dude, Where's My Camp? Where we show useful camp locations, awesome build ideas, and tips and tricks to help us get the job done. Today's camp location was chosen for a couple of different reasons. We are slightly north of Camp McClintock, which we've actually nicknamed Camp McClipboard. This is a great place to go to get a lot of clipboards, to get springs from them. Also, the reason that this area was chosen is because we are pretty close to quite a few other areas that you're going to want to discover and clear. If you're around level 19 or 20, you may be still doing part of the Overseer's quest, which will take you down to the AVR Medical Center. Also, we've got Poseidon Energy not too far away, the Capitol building, and also Flatwoods isn't too far away as well, in case you got to stock back up on food again. You know, they've got Brahmin, Ragstag, etc. Now, what's really good about this location by Camp McClintock is there's a couple of workbenches not too far away. Here at Lakeside Cabins, we've got quite a few resources that workbench produces, but we're mainly interested in the lead. Also, we've got a workbench at Poseidon Energy. We can also make fusion cores there, but once again, what we're mostly interested in is the lead vein. And the reason that we're interested in the lead is because here at our camp location, we actually have a steel vein that we're going to be extracting steel ore from. So there are 3 steel locations around Camp McClintock. They're all really great spots to build at. But I chose this spot because it was underneath of this electrical tower that's holding the electrical lines up. And I thought we could build something pretty cool inside of it. And I've got an idea to build a building that is 4 foundations by 5 foundations big. Now I've already taken the time and ran the foundations around to make sure they all line up, and they do. Now we're not going to build the foundations in right away first like you normally would in a camp. Normally you've got to have a foundation, then you would put up a ladder, walls, floors, etc. from that support. But we need to put our walls up first before we can put our floors in. Now let me explain why. The normal snap point for a wall on a floor or foundation is on the edge. Well, I'd like to do something a little different. I'd like to move our wall from the edge of the foundation to the center. Since there is no snap point on a foundation to do that, we're going to have to create a new snap point for our walls, and we'll use the second story floors to do it. So we'll place in a few of these half floors in the correct position that we're going to want to move our walls to. Now this next trick that we're getting ready to see, you can pretty much do with anything that will snap to a floor, and that includes the walls. Whether it's the half a wall or the full wall, it still works the same way. If you take your wall and snap the top of it to the floor, you will be able to remove any of the floors away from the wall, and it will float without support. Now we'll be free to move the floors around and adjust them so that we can snap the next sets of walls up. We'll move this half of floor around so that a wall can snap to it, and then we'll put another half floor up and then a full floor, and continue the full floors all the way around the rest of the build. Then we'll be able to go ahead and place all of the walls up around all 4 sides. Now while we're doing this, let's take a second and talk about why the floating wall trick works. Well, in 76 everything has to be built from support, so that means from the ground up. In other words, we'll put out a foundation, a wall or a ladder would snap to it, that's at the bottom. Then you would snap a floor or a ceiling in, that would be at the top, and so on. So since we snapped the walls, the top of the wall to the floor and not the bottom, it doesn't count the floor as a support object. Therefore, we'll be able to take them in and out as our leisure, at our leisure. If the floor was snapped to the bottom of the wall, then it wouldn't allow us to take it out, because it would consider it a support object. And now all we'll have to do is remove all of our floors, and then we can get a really good look at all of our walls floating. I have been working with this tip quite a bit, and I've actually discovered quite a few other objects that do the same thing if you apply the same strategy to it. So look forward to seeing that in upcoming videos. Alright, now let's go ahead and put our foundations in. The reason that I didn't put the foundations in before the walls is because for some reason when I tried to snap the walls up, it wouldn't snap. It kept saying colliding with pre-existing object. So with not having the foundations in, it allowed us to snap the walls up extremely easy. And because of build order, now we can go ahead and place the rest of our foundations in. And we can see from this point that half of our foundation's on the outside and half is on the inside. Alright, now let's go ahead, snap a half a floor up to the stair, and the reason we're doing a half a floor is so we can snap a quarter railing onto the end of it. Now we can go ahead and store our half a floor and the railing will stay behind. The railings are another object that will float once you've snapped it to a floor. By doing this, we're able to replace the half a floor with a full floor, and then it gives us a nice little railing effect as we're building our stairs up to the top of our tower. Alright, now let's go ahead, turn our attention to the type of roof that we're going to make for the first story. Now, the design idea that I have is going to take a lot of build manipulation to get it done. What I'd like to do is have half of the roof on the outside of the wall and half of the roof on the inside. And it would match up with the foundation down below. To do this, we're going to need to use half floors all the way around the top of our walls. Now, we want to use these for a couple of reasons. First of all, it'll give us the offset for our roof. Second of all, it will give us a snap point for walls that we can snap our roof to. Also, we will want to use some railings later on, and we'll want to snap them to the other side of the floor. Now, the issue that we're going to run into using the half of floors is that all four corners don't match up exactly where we could snap something up to the outside of it. Now, two ends are going to match up fine for placing the walls on, but the two sides are not. But the two sides are going to match up fine for snapping up railings, but not for putting up the walls. And as we can see right here, this floor is a quarter off from being able to snap a wall onto it. But it lines up nicely with the outside edge of the wall, where if we put a railing up, it would match up with the wall outside, and we wouldn't have a gap. Alright, before we go moving our floors all around, let's get our roof in. Now, if you'll remember right, I want to use the 45-degree roof to do this. But I want it to angle down, not up. And that's what we'd get if we snapped it to that wall. So what we're going to need to do is use a tip that we saw in our last video, but we're going to modify it a little bit. Now, what that tip was is if we snap some flat roofs up to the back of a wall and we work our way around to the front of the wall, the roof that's snapped in will think that the front of the wall is its support. And because of that, we will be able to remove the rest of the ceilings or the roofs out of the way. Now, the modification that we're doing is we're adding in another flat roof to the side, so that way we can snap the angle roof to that, and we will get the angled roof to go down. The snap point for the angled roof is at the top, and the snap point for a wall is at the bottom. Now we can go ahead and add in a second angled roof. Once we've done that, now it thinks its support is the first flat roof and the wall. So now we can go ahead and add in the rest of our ceilings or our roofs. And really from this angle, we can really get a good look at how that's going to look over our wall. We can see half of it is on the inside of the build and half of it is sticking out over the outside of the build. And we'll just put a few more of these up, and then we'll go ahead and get to snapping up some railings. Alright, now that most of our roof is in, the next thing that we're going to want to do is place a flat roof in another location that has a wall and is connected to the roof we just put in. That has now become our new support location. By doing that, we're able to move this roof and wall out so that we can start moving these floors around to start snapping some railings on. So to start off with, we'll go ahead and flip this half a wall around, and then we can move this half a floor into its correct location, correct position on the wall. And then we'll spin this final one around here. And as you can see, everything is still supported, and we got to move it around in a way that it stays supported, or it won't let us do it. Now, keep this in mind, ladies and gentlemen. Build order when you're creating or designing builds like this is very important. We tried to place the roofs in after we put the railings up, and they just wouldn't go. But if we put the roofs up first, then the railings had no problem going in, and they snapped right up there. Now, I did work with quite a few ideas to close up this gap between the top of the wall and the bottom of the roof. But when I discovered the railings, it was like, wah, the sun shining through the clouds, and it was like a moment of zen. I was really, really excited to see that those railings filled that gap up perfectly, and it gives it a really nice look too. Alright, let's go back into our build. Let's spin our floors around the right way, so that way we can snap up some more railings down the sides of our build. Now, once we've gotten these railings in, there's only one side left of our build that we need to adjust the floors for the railings. And so we'll jump in there and do that real quick. But before we adjust those floors, let's readjust these floors of the railings we've already put in, so that way it'll make it really easy to snap walls up to it. And we'll do that by adding in quarter floors to each one of the corners of our build. By doing that, it'll offset our half a floor in the direction that it needs to go, so that we can snap a wall up to it. And here we can see that real quick. Here's a quarter floor that goes in, and now when we move this floor over to it, it's in the right position to snap a wall up. And we'll just go ahead and do that through the rest of the build. Now when we get to the other end, we can go ahead, move the floors the way we need to move them so that we can snap our railings up. And then we'll put quarter floors in those areas as well, so that we can get our floors in. And here we go, snapping our last railings up, and it really looks good. I'm so happy with the way that this has turned out. With those railings up there, it really gives it a nice look. It really does. I'm extremely happy with the way that this has turned out. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking about using this design idea in another build design of a different type. So I hope you guys stay tuned for more videos on this series, where we'll show more of these design ideas and tips and tricks. And now that our final floor is in, we are ready to start putting up some half of walls. But before we do that, I think I would like to run our electrical and our lighting in this area to help hide it. I'm hoping that the lighting in 76 is like the lighting in Fallout 4, and it will penetrate the floor and light up the first story. By doing so, we'll have it all lit up, but we won't see any lights or lighting anywhere in the area. It'll all be hidden and covered in here. Alright, we got half of it done now. We can go ahead and take out the floor I was walking on, and we can go ahead and start putting up our walls. And let's see how that looks. I think it's going to have a really, really nice look to it. Now, a couple of my friends said they thought it might look better without the red, but I don't know why. I liked the red. I thought it kind of gave it a little bit of a little bit different look down here inside of the build. Alright, now that we've got that many of the walls in, let's go ahead and put our flat roof back up, and we can take our support out because we have walls up now. and then we'll go ahead and finish off the rest of our lighting. But let's go ahead and throw another flat roof up real quick. That will cover us while we're working down below at the workbenches. And I think I like the rafters running this direction, so we'll just spin them real quick. Alright, perfect. Now, to get the power from the generator up to this part of the build, it was pretty simple. Just laid down a power connection on the floor and then snapped this upright one to it. Once I did that, it went through the floor, and then we were able to connect it to the generator. Then back up on top, we took the connector and connected it to our power line, and now all of our lighting is working. Now that it's working and we're done with that, we can go ahead and put the rest of the walls up. And by doing so, this part of the build is complete. And that really looks good. I like that. The way the lighting lights up inside of those windows. And also we can see the lights shining down on the walls from up above. Gives it a really nice look in here. A kind of a nice ambiance type look. And I'm really, really happy with the way that looks there. Alrighty then. This is the top floor of our tower. Now this floor that we're looking at right now is the exact size it needs to be. But I would like to use part of it as a walkway around our building that we're going to make up here. So basically what we're going to do is the same tip that we saw in the beginning of the video. We're going to use a half a floor and offset it to the left. We'll use a full floor in front of that. And once we place this down, we'll see that now we have moved our floor 1/2 of a floor in 2 different directions. And this gives us a new snap point for a wall. Now, the trick that we're getting ready to do here only requires 1 wall. Why I put in 2, I don't really know for sure, but don't think that 2 walls is what made this work. It still works even using 1 wall. Alright, once we've got the wall in, we're going to want to snap a roof to it, or a ceiling. We're going to want to run it out as far as it takes to get to another part of the floor that we're not going to be moving around. It just so happens to be right here where we're at right now. So now we'll take and snap a wall onto the ceiling, and as you can see, that wall is in the middle of 2 different full floors. Now, because of that, we can go ahead and take out these support walls that we first started with. Even though that wall that we just put in is not snapped to the floor, it still thinks that it is supporting everything else, the wall and the 2 roofs. Now, let's go ahead, take a second, and snap our floors back in the way that they're supposed to be. Then we can complete the rest of our build. Now, keep this in mind, ladies and gentlemen, because there is no snap point on the floor for the walls where they're at right now. We will have to build the rest of the roof in, so that way we have a place to snap our walls up to. Now we can just go around and change whichever walls we want into doorways. And now what I'd like to do is place a railing up right here around our stairs. But we've got full floors in and we're not going to be able to do it. This is a great tip in how to move floors around so that you can do things like this railing. The floor I'm standing on is still supporting everything else out in the build. So because of that, we can move the floor around at our leisure. Now that we've got our railing in, we can move our floor back to where it was at and snap another floor back in. And this is a great tip to put these railings in to places that they normally won't snap to. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a nice little walkway around our build, and I think we'll put our living quarters up here. Even though this build's pretty big, it's still pretty tight. And let's go ahead and take a look at it from a distance. And yeah, that really looks good. I'm extremely happy with the way this build has turned out. Now, we normally blueprint our builds and then show it being put back up in a new camp location via the blueprint. But we're not going to do that today. The reason is because the way this build was created, we have a lot of floating objects. And even though it's a simple build, it's very complex in the way it was built. And we would never be able to get this down again, no matter what we did or tried. Alright everybody, thank you all for stopping in for part 3 of Dude, Where's My Camp? Where we show useful locations, awesome build ideas, and tips and tricks to help us get the job done. I look forward to seeing you all on the next video and or stream. And just like always, everyone, please, until next time, stay safe and peace.